So my name is Ruth Cordova in English. In Spanish it's Ruth Cordova. And I studied clinical psychology in Guatemala. And I've been living here with my family for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I also studied in Argentina, some more psychological stuff. And basically what I do is just see clients who have mental health issues or whatever problem, because sometimes you don't have to have a disorder or something extreme to look for therapy, right?
Yeah.
Which is the ideal. And try to help them. I use a therapy called AIT, or Advanced Integrative Therapy, that works removing emotional traumatic charge. So using your energy system, we look for what's originating your issues today and target that trauma, remove the emotional charge, and so you'll be able to remember without the pain, the suffering, and the repetition, which is a problem, right? And when you have unresolved trauma, you tend to repeat it throughout your life.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting and very effective, and I love my job.
You mentioned that people don't have to go to therapy if they don't have a mental illness.
Yeah.
How do you think, is that stigma? There's a stigma attached to therapy?
I think mainly, well, everywhere. I think that I've traveled a little and learned that in every society there's some sort of stigma around going to therapy and looking for help. Even sometimes in the same profession, like psychiatrists will have stigma against psychologists. Medics or doctors will have stigma against certain kinds of therapy. And sometimes that results in having trouble working as a team for the client.
Yeah.
And also in male-dominated cultures, you have the stigma that men have to basically suck it up and, not look for help, not ask for help, or not show emotion. And a lot of men do look for therapy, I think more now, but still hide it, and not talk about it. So I think what you're doing is very brave.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've found that it takes a lot of courage to just talk openly about that or anything emotional. People, it is difficult, but and I get why people don't want to talk about it, but at the same time, I know personally, it helps tremendously just to talk about it, and just like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders whenever I started to let it out. I guess.
Be open about it.
Yeah. How do we let people know that it's okay?
It's hard because it could be for many reasons that you feel that you cannot talk about it. And one big issue, I think, is loyalty to the family. So sometimes if you have sexual abuse trauma or addiction or violence or, whatever traumatic events that happen in childhood, usually, that's where it starts, have to do with family. So sometimes we keep it and we don't allow ourselves to heal because we are being loyal to this family secret, And if you talk about it and you put it out there and you start to choose a different way of life, sometimes that also means, betraying your family, or and also sometimes it does mean that they will reject you. Not every member of the family will like that you're talking about certain issues.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it could be that your family starts to realize this is not normal and start also going down a healing path, but you never know, so that could be frightening. As another thing also that happens a lot when you start doing therapy and moving on or healing in whatever way you find that is useful for you, is that you start shedding some bad friends or some not very good positive, acquaintances or friends, or even family members,
or habits,
yeah. And so this just starts happening naturally, and change into something new that would be healthier can be frightening too. So I think the trick is to just find whatever works for you. It could be psychological therapy, but maybe not every kind of therapy. You have to look for one that works,
Same with medications.
It could be, medication is also trial and error.
Yeah, and so it works for some, not others.
Yeah. And for some people, reading self-help books works, meditating, any kind of spiritual practice in a positive way, because sometimes prayer can be tricky in the way that you could pray and blame yourself, and the people who cry and focus on the negative while they're praying is different than if you pray in a state of gratefulness.
I like that, being in a state of gratefulness. That has helped me out tremendously this last year. Just whenever I'm lost or frustrated, I just try to go right back to the center of what am I most grateful for, and then I'm able to build out to the situation that was frustrating me. It's like, okay, I'm grateful for this frustration in my life because I'm able to learn and persevere or something.
The learning part when you're coming out of trauma is very important, because it allows you to give a meaning to your suffering.
For me, like I experienced a lot of shame, and so I wasn't allowed to feel regret because that meant it was shameful. So it was like I couldn't admit something was wrong or I made a mistake and learn from it and grow from it, because I was just like, I am that mistake. I am awful. I can't. So like the shame would that shame cycle would just spin around for me.
And usually shame is always towards what others will think or what others will say. Or,
invisible things, not non-truths. And
so usually,
so anxiety gets y'all wound up for something that's not even happened
but
yet.
Maybe it's not happening. So I think stigma goes a lot in that sense that you are focused on what other people would think or would say or would want from you, or expect from you, instead of focusing on what you need and what maybe asking for help for yourself first, right? So that's a big thing around not looking for help or not talking about your issues is maybe your focus or your attention is outside when it should be inside.
Admitting that you have unhealthy coping skills, or admitting that you played a part in putting yourself in a bad situation. It's like, if you're in an abusive relationship, it's definitely not your fault that you're being abused. But for some reason, I'm just saying you in particular. The person. Oh goodness.
I had a first marriage that was very wrong for me.
And it. I mean, did it take you a while to kind of come to terms with that?
Yes, it does. And what you say is true. It's not your fault, because you're basically repeating a pattern that comes probably from childhood. Right? So we tend to choose our parents as a partner, a mother, father, or a combination of both, which is the most complicated one. We tend to behave with our partner or with our children in the same way that our parents behaved with us.
It's like a go-to.
So it's actually not your fault, because this happened to you as a child, right? But as an adult, it is your responsibility to do something about it and to change or not. So it took me, I was 24 when I got married. I was very young. And it took me 3 years to get out of an abusive relationship. So that's a long time, right? And there was a lot of judgment from other people on why didn't you, separate at first, or even family members. which is the thing that we're talking about, right? That you don't do it because what other people will think or because they'll judge you. But at the end of the day, you are the one living with that. You are the only one living in that situation or with your own inner suffering and pain, and everybody else has their own, you know. And if they judge you or are triggered by you, it's because maybe you are evoking some of that in them. So you have to.
So yeah, my point was that you have to take responsibility.
Yeah.
And
for
even though it's not
right?
your fault, taking accountability for like, okay, these are patterns of mine. I would like to choose a different pattern.
Yeah.
And that means you've got to get out of my life because you're not healthy for me.
And also move from that place of being a victim of the situation, right? And of that place of repeating all these patterns that are not good for you. And there is a way out, and sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing it, but when we do, we'll have that moment of clarity where we say, okay, this is not normal, this is not right, and in that moment it is our choice whether we want to stay there or look for help. And it's not easy, but it's worth it.
It's not easy, but it's worth it. Yeah, that's life.
Yes. We all have something.
No. Well, I appreciate you sharing. I mean, we just met literally just then, and being able to talk openly about pretty difficult subjects is what this place is about. And where can people find you if they're seeking some counseling?
So my information is in the AIT website. That's AIT Institute. So AIT.institute, sorry. Under Find a Therapist, I'm there under the state of Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And you mentioned that. Where did you learn the AIT stuff?
So I studied my first seminar in AIT was in Guatemala when I was doing my studies in psychology in college. And then I studied some of them there and some of them here. So it's basically you do a basic seminar and then you have the choice to go wherever you want to specialize: anxiety disorders, personality disorders, physical illness, or there's a wide variety of seminars.
All right, no, this is a lot to the human experience.
Yeah.
What would be something you would, if somebody's watching these videos, like what is a message that you would like to convey to someone watching this?
I think, mental health is a daily practice, right? This is something we all have to look out for. No one is free of trauma. We all had something. We fell out of the crib, or we fell in the yard and we have a trauma from that, or we had abusive parents, or a bunch of things could have happened, but there is no perfect childhood. So we all have something we need to work on, and this is important that we can review ourselves, review our triggers. So what is overwhelming for us? What is not letting us function in everyday life like we should or like we would like to? And just look for help. Don't let all these things take over your life.